for attending today. My name is Brandon Grant. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at QuoteWerks. And today in our Pain Point Webinar series, we're going to be discussing manipulating and editing data in your quotes. Typically with these Pain Point webinars, we try to keep them pretty short. We know your time is valuable, so we want to be cognizant of that. So we're going to kind of go through this major pain point and kind of show you how you can use QuoteWorks to alleviate these issues with some of the shortcuts and built-in efficiencies that are available. So with every webinar, we like to go over the agenda first, talk about the pain point, how we're planning to solve it or how you can solve it. And then we'll actually do a live demonstration in QuoteWorks of kind of walking through that process so you can see how it works. And hopefully it's something that you can take with you today. Additionally, we will take questions at the end of the webinar. You'll see in the go-to meeting box, there's a text box or a little questions box. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them there as we're going through. If I don't answer your question right away, don't worry, I will circle back at the end of the session today and make sure I answer as many of those as possible. As always, make sure you're connecting with us on social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. That's a great place to kind of find out what's going on with QuoteWorks currently, what's coming out, what's available, anything like that. And then, like I said, we will be recording this webinar today as well and sending out a link to everyone. So if you have to leave early or someone from your team couldn't make it, we'll make sure to get a copy of it over to you. So today we're kind of focusing on editing documents in QuoteWorks and editing your quotes in general. I'm sure a lot of you have that kind of like dread come over you when you get a response from a customer asking you to make a change to the document. You realize you're gonna have to go in there and really edit and make a lot of changes. So there's a lot of functionality in QuoteWorks that can really help this process and make things easier. Kind of if you follow a certain process, if you're looking at organizing the document and kind of making edits on a group basis instead of one by one. We've had a lot of new features in the last year as well to make that much easier and simpler. And the whole idea is just to make it faster and painless. So that's what we're going to be kind of discussing today and kind of walking through the options that are available for that. So the first one is sorting and organize. So in QuoteWorks, we have a lot of functionality to help you kind of move the data around the document itself. So we have column sorting. You can drag and drop line items. You can add section headers to organize the document. Those are three things that are really, really quick and easy to do that can make working in your document much, much simpler. We also have search functionality. So if you're looking to update a specific line item, you can't find something, especially if you have larger quotes, if you have a couple hundred items in a quote, that can be pretty daunting. So using all that functionality and the search functionality can really help kind of make things a little bit simpler for you when you're utilizing QuoteWorks and updating that data. Additionally, editing items in groups. So essentially editing, instead of individually editing each item, you can edit multiple items at a time. So we have a couple options for this. The apply multi-line item changes, which I believe came out in 2020. That feature will allow you to make changes across multiple items at once. Also utilizing like the price modifiers to update the pricing, and there's some shortcuts available as well, which I'll go through. But these are quick ways that you can make changes to multiple items at once without having to select an item, make a change, select the next item, that type of deal. And then finally, just kind of navigating through the quote workbook more efficiently. So we have added additionally in the last year, functionality that allows you to maneuver around the document much simpler by using tab and enter and the arrow keys to move around, so it's more Excel-like. Since everyone is so familiar with Excel, it makes it a lot easier that you can kind of maneuver through there and make changes to the data. There's also ways to utilize like the home and end buttons on your keyboard to move the cursor in the text box when you are making those types of changes. And we're going to go over all this together today, so you can kind of see and exactly how we're going to walk through that process. So there's a lot of features and shortcuts that are available to you. These are just a few of them. So if you are unfamiliar with any of these, we'll be covering most of them today. Actually, I should have time to cover all of them. So you can kind of see how you can use them, kind of how they were designed, because it might kind of have a light bulb go off in your head about there's some things that you can pick up here and start using in your installation that's going to make things easier for you as well. So we'll kind of step through that process. And then, as always, we have a ton of resources on the website. So if you do have questions or need assistance, we're always a phone call or an email away. So definitely feel free to reach out to us for support. If you have any troubleshooting issues, you can do that. If you have any how-to questions, you can always come to sales. And then we do offer free trials if you are looking at any of our add-ons. We have a ton of videos for specific features. Our help documentation is updated every time we have a new release. We have the webinars, and then we do offer paid services as well. So if you're wanting a QuoteWerks team member to actually come into like your installation and walk you through something or do something for you, we do have paid services for that. So there's a lot of assistance available for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to QuoteWorks. Let me get updated here. So the first thing we want to talk about is kind of like the sort and organize. So you have this existing document here. So we're going to start with my quote here that already has a bunch of items on it. And there's not really any kind of organization to it yet. I just selected a bunch of items and added them to the document. So this is where you can use some of these features to really and to easily and quickly kind of update your quotes and make changes as needed. So first thing I want to talk about is a lot of times we want to maybe sort by a specific like item type. So if you're using the item type column and you have products and services or labor or hardware or software, however you have it organized, that's a great way that you can use this functionality. So we can sort by the item type. And to sort a column, you simply need to click on the column, and that'll give you the option to sort ascending. By this case, item type. And so if I click yes, you'll see all my item types and all my line items associated with it are now in ascending order in the item type, so essentially alphabetical order. You can also flip it if you hold shift on your keyboard instead and click on the item type, and that'll let you do descending instead, and that'll let you make changes there. So that's a very quick way to do that on your document. You can also specify if you wanted to do it by vendor. So you can see here I have quite a few different vendors, so maybe I just want to sort it by vendor. And then that makes it really easy where I can see which items I'm sourcing from a specific vendor. Maybe I have a different vendor I want to use for a specific item, or I want to change that. You can do that. So it's a really quick way by using the sort functionality to kind of start maneuvering your items in the document. Additionally, you can add section headers. So if you've watched any of our webinars or any of our videos, you've probably seen us add these. These are something that we use a lot in QuoteWorks. And it's really, really useful for organizational purposes. So if you right click in your document, there's an option for insert section header. And these are just where you're going to put in the description of the section header line. And it's going to be whatever you want it to be. It could be by the item type. It could be by the vendor. It could be by a section of the document, a phase of the document. So for instance, if we wanted to say, for this one, we'll just do it by item type. So we'll say, here's our services. And then we'll do another one for here's our products. And then here's our labor rates. We'll call it labor and install. That will let us organize our document that way. What the section headers also do is provide you a summary of the total for those sections. And then within the sections, you can also sort. So in my products, if I said, okay, well, you know what, I want to actually sort these by the item type, I can select those items, so highlight them, and then I can select them, and I can actually see, well, I have a labor item in here under my product, so I want to move that. So there's a couple different ways you can move this item. Easiest way is simply drag and drop. So if you left click on your mouse all the way over to the left, you can quickly drag and drop it over here. Same thing with the service, I can drag and drop over here. We also support multi-item selection. So if I wanted to say, you know what, this Samsung item, and then let's say this triple light item, I hold control on my keyboard and then left click, and then just don't let go of your mouse. I could actually maneuver both items down here. And if I wanted to create a new section and call it like optional items, I can do that. So that's a really easy way to kind of maneuver those items around the document. So just by adding some section headers and sorting, I was able to quickly kind of organize these types of different documents. Now, a lot of times you want to be able to make changes to a specific item. So, or maybe you're looking for a specific item, saying, oh, I know I added this to the quote and I just, for some reason, I can't find it. So there is a find functionality in the quote workbook. So if you hit Control F on your keyboard, this will actually open up that find window for you in QuoteWorks, and you can search on a specific column. So for instance, if I wanted to find, we'll say our warranty. So I'm going to look for description and contains warranty. And if you don't have any items selected, it'll start searching from the top. If you have an item selected down here, it'll start searching from there and move to the bottom. And then you'll see here, it found it on line 3 in the description column. So it found the word warranty right here in my description column. And if I click find next, it would go to the next one. And then if I go to the next one, it's in that description as well, inside the warranty or inside the description of this particular item. So right there with the warranty. And then that's all it's found. So that's a really easy way to locate a very specific item that you're looking for in your document, is being able to use that find. And in combination with the sorting and the find and the section headers, it's going to make it really easy for you to kind of organize your documents, move things around. And then specifically, I like to use drag and drop because I think that's a great way to maneuver items in the document. We do support cut, copy, and paste as well. So if you want to cut and paste instead, you can do that as well. I prefer the drag and drop just because I think it's a little quicker, but that is an option to kind of organize it also. So once you kind of have your items in the document, to make changes to the item is going to be really, really simple. So obviously, I think a lot of you know that you can go into an item and say, okay, well, I want to set this unit price to 300. Well, you can do that. So that's very easy to do. But what if you wanted to change multiple items at once? So let's say I wanted to change all my services, so I can select multiple items at once, and I want to change their unit price to $500. So what I can do is right click and choose apply price modifier, and I can mark it up a certain amount. Or so if you wanted to do a certain percentage, so you say I want to mark it up, it's a service, so we want to mark it up 50% from cost, or we want a 50% profit, so we're going to do margin points. So we would say, okay, we want a 50% margin on those items. I can do that, and that'll update that price modifier across all 3 items at once. Now, if you want to just set a very specific price, saying, hey, I want my unit price for these 3 items to be $700. This is where you can utilize the multi-line change option. So if you right click again, you'll see it's down here. There's also a shortcut on the QuoteWorks grid toolbar here, where it says apply multi-line changes. So if I click on that, that'll bring up this little window. And then I can say, let's select our unit price column. And then I want to change it to, I think we'll change it to 700. And then click apply. And it'll apply it to whatever you have highlighted. You'll see here there's also some shortcuts in here. So if you wanted to just maybe deduct 5%, you can do minus 5%. Click apply, and it'll update that automatically for you, that 5%. If you wanted to add 5%, you could do that. If you wanted to just add a number, if you said, I just want to add $45 to it, you could do plus 45, click apply, and it'll add $45 to that total. So there's a lot of flexibility and functionality in using this multi-line changes. It's also a great way to update your items if you want to change like the vendor. So maybe we're looking at, let's go to our products here. And we have all these products and we want to source them all from the same vendor. So if I sort by my vendor here, I'll see I have 4 different vendors. So what I can do is click on my apply multi-line changes, select my vendor column, and let's say we want to change it to, we'll just change it to QuoteWorks for simplicity, and click apply, and then that'll update that vendor for all those. So it's going to be really useful for any of you that are using specific distributors. Maybe you get better pricing when you source the item from them instead. Maybe you have special shipping information that you get from them. So there's a lot of different ways to use that functionality to kind of update those items at once. That's one of my favorite ones to use just because it's a real quick way to make those changes. But the apply multi-line changes is going to let you essentially make any changes to any item that's selected column. You could do one, you could do multiple items. A great way to utilize the apply multi-line changes is with the select special as well. So for those of you that have never seen the select special, it's under your edit menu. And in the edit menu, you'll see there's an option that says select special. And so when you click on that, it's going to open up the select special window. And what this allows you to do is highlight multiple items based on your search criteria. So for instance, if you were looking for any items that have the description that begin with, or we'll do contains the word Cisco, you can click OK, and you can see I have 2 items. So let's select a different one here. Do one for trip. So just by putting the word trip in there, let's bring it back up since it closed out of there. You can see it highlighted my 3 items that have the word trip for trip light. So this is extremely useful if you are, maybe you have a specific vendor or manufacturer that you sell their items on a regular basis and you're getting a special discount and you're going to apply that to these items. You could use the select special to highlight all of those items, and then now I can come in and say, okay, well, let's change the price modifier. And let's change it to, we want to mark these up. They're all markup of 20, so let's go ahead and change it to a margin of 50. Click apply, and it's just going to apply it to those 3 highlighted items. So by using the select special first, I can tell QuoteWorks, hey, highlight these 3 items or these 15 items, however many your criteria meets, and then you can use that multi-line changes to adjust items descriptions. You could change items quantities from there. You can make a lot of changes. So let's go ahead and do that next. So if we wanted to change those items quantities, again, we can use our multi-line selection. We'll click quantity base. And let's say we want to change it to 3 and click apply, and that'll change the quantity to 3 as well. And then there's some built-in shortcuts also for this as well. So again, just like the unit price or the unit cost, if you're making changes, if you want to just add 2 to the quantities, you can do that. So maybe you were talking to your customer and they came back to you and they said, hey, you quoted us 3 for this, 2 for this, and 6 for this. Can you add 2 more to all of those? Well, instead of having to select individually each of those, you could just say, okay, well, let me highlight the items that need changes and then go to my apply multi-line changes and then say, okay, let's add 4 more to those. And it'll update all 3 items at once for you. So it's a nice little shortcut being able to make those changes at once. And the same thing, if you were using select special, you could have them highlighted with a couple clicks and then making the changes with 1 click just to save you some time there as well. Obviously, you can change it on the fly if you need it. And that's kind of like the third part of this, where you've kind of organized the document, you've made some changes to the multiple items, but if you need to make just simple single changes to the items, you can do that. So when you click on the description of an item, QuoteWorks will automatically highlight it for you. So if you need to make a change or you want to replace the description, you can do that. Really, really useful if you're like copying and pasting the description out of somewhere else. You can copy it, out of a Google search, come back into QuoteWorks and paste over your description in here. If you wanted to simply put in a new description, when it's highlighted, if you hit home on your keyboard, that'll put the cursor at the front. And maybe you just want to call it, you want to add a new adjusted description for this particular item, you can do that. And then when you're done, if you want to go down to the next item, you can hit the down arrow on your keyboard. We can also use the tab button or the arrows to move across the columns. And you can use the enter key to move down rows, except for the description field, just because we have multi-line in there. So if you wanted to add more text, you can do that. So there's some easy ways to kind of maneuver around the document. Really, really useful if you're going to be updating like prices, maybe a bunch of your prices change and it's just going to be faster for you to key them in. You can go through and simply type in the new one, type in enter, and QuoteWorks will move you down to the next one, and you can go through and adjust all those. Same thing if you wanted to adjust the price modifiers, you could go through and do that as well. So you can use those kind of shortcuts and those keys to kind of move around the document a little freer, makes things a lot easier as you're kind of just like navigating through everything. One thing that we've talked about is obviously when you click on the item, it's going to bring you to your description here, or it's going to highlight the text that's in that particular field. Same thing with like your unit cost or unit price, really any of the fields. If you want to put the cursor in a specific spot, if you hold Control on your keyboard, when you click, you can choose exactly where you want that cursor to be. So simply hold Control, choose where you want your cursor to appear, and that's where you can have it added. And you can say, we'll just add something in there. Or if you just want to highlight the entire description, you can do that as well. So it's really useful if you're going to adjust like an item type or you're going to add something to it. You can simply hold Control, do it. If you want to add something to your unit price or your unit cost and change a decimal or something like that, you can use that Control functionality to put the cursor exactly in the document where you'd like it to be. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the ability to move multiple line items at once through the drag and drop. I saw there's a few questions that came in, and I did go through that pretty quickly, so I just wanted to circle back very briefly on that. So if you do have items on the document that you want to move around, if you use the drag and drop functionality, essentially you can drag one item just by left clicking and moving wherever you'd like in the document. It's pretty straightforward. But if you wanted to move multiple items at once, it's a little bit different. So you can do it for contiguous items. So I could say just highlight these two items and move both of them there. And the way you're going to do this is when you click on the last item, you're simply not going to let go of your mouse click. So you're going to left click on item 1 and left click on item 2, and then you simply just don't let go, and then you'll be able to simply drag and drop it exactly where you want on your quote sheet in QuoteWorks. So that's going to be the easiest way to do that. You can drag and drop line items out of bundles as well. So if you are using groups and configurators and things like that, where you're having groups or you're building bundles on the fly, you'll be able to move items in and out using the drag and drop if you want. And if you do drag them into the group, they'll become part of that group. So by default, that price will be hidden, and those types of things will automatically come over for you. So the last thing I wanted to mention, there are a ton of keyboard shortcuts as well that you can utilize. If you haven't noticed, if you click on the edit menu, you actually see a list of all of these. So they're all available for you here. So that's also a great way if you can learn or memorize a couple of these. You'll actually be able to kind of maneuver through pretty quickly. The less you have to come into the edit menu, the better. There's also a lot of these grid toolbar shortcuts for a lot of the functionality we talked about as well. So for instance, if you wanted to edit like a line attributes, you click on the attributes window icon there, and that'll open it. You can also double click on line items, and that'll open up that line attributes as well. So there's a lot of different ways and shortcuts that you can use for this. In the QuoteWorks help file, there are a list of all of the shortcuts. It's going to be under chapter 5, I believe. Yeah, it should be chapter 5, working with document items. So if you go into chapter 5, you should see there's a shortcuts topic, and it's its own topic, and it has a list of all those shortcuts. So you can print it out, keep it by your machine while you're kind of learning them. That's a great way that you can kind of move around the document as well and kind of make those adjustments and changes to QuoteWorks also. Okay, so I know that was a lot to cover, but wanted to make sure we covered those. Oh, and the last thing, because I saw someone just posted a comment about it, undo and redo. If you're unaware, that is available up to 10 different spots. So if you made changes, you can revert back 10 times using the undo and redo. You'll see the options are here, but the typical Windows shortcuts are available as well, of Control Y and Control Z for redo and undo. So those are supported in QuoteWorks as well, those typical shortcuts. Okay, well, I think we got through everything we wanted to cover with a couple minutes to spare. I saw there are quite a few questions, so I'm going to go ahead and start running through those. For those of you that have additional questions, feel free to post in the questions box here, or if you want to take a look and do some research and then come back to us, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We're always happy to answer those. For those of you who have posted questions, just hang tight. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll start going through and answering those. So if you're not sticking around for the questions, thanks for attending today, and let us know if you have anything else we can help you with.